Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. This is going to be The Monster is Coming Part 2. Just did the one on The Monster is Coming Part 1, obviously, making this 2. The first was on the COVID pandemic, what was really going on with that. And this one's going to be about the second monster, which is the economic collapse that's coming as a result, mainly, of it's going to be as a result of the COVID pandemic, with secondary issues of the solutions to it, the cure. Hopefully, the cure, what's being done, with the disclaimer that the economy had some basic problems to begin with that people weren't seeing. Okay. So we're gonna really simplify this, and I'm just gonna kind of give you some ideas, throw out a couple of numbers, and give you an idea of what you might want to be doing to get ready for this. Okay. The stock market was overinflated to begin with. It was being supported through QE, quantitative easing. Okay, please don't. I hope nobody switched off at that. I'm not going to stay that technical for the rest of this. But it was being supported at levels that were really, they weren't real, and there had to be a correction somehow. I've heard people say that this COVID pandemic is a manufactured situation just to cover the collapse, either to cover the collapse of the economy or to cause the collapse of the economy. I don't know. I don't subscribe to either of those. I think that sometimes, big things do happen, and often one exacerbates the other. But we're going to leave that aside because I'm not going to discuss that because that's nothing but opinion, and that's not what I'm here about. Although I'm going to give my opinion on a couple of things, all right? I do, but I base them on what I know to be true myself. Okay. The closings, the economic impact of this virus is going to be beyond what most people understand. I know I've said this several times, that we're headed for a collapse that most people can't understand, aren't ready for, and can't even get their mind around what they should do to get ready for it. Okay, the president of the St. Louis Fed just came out, was it yesterday or the day before? I don't know, and projected a 32 point something or other unemployment rate coming up. Now this guy, there are a number of Feds across the country, but this guy, and his name escapes me right now, he has been on target on a lot of things and is often out of step with the rest of the Fed presidents, but he is one that he's been on target a lot. Now, what does a excuse me. I got off the green tea. I've got this cough, as I explained before. It's just allergies. And now I'm on to the old standby cough syrup, right? And if you've read my books, you have a suspicion of what that is. 32% unemployment rate means that a third of the people in the country are out of work. That means they can't pay their rent. That means they can't pay their car payments. That means they can't buy food. They can't buy anything. They have no income. They need to be taken care of by somebody, and that is Uncle Sugar, the government, going to say, I'm going to send you a whole bunch of money. Okay. Now, to put that in perspective, there's a couple of things here. The highest unemployment rate during the Great Depression was 24.9%. And now we're talking about a 32.7% coming up here. If it's anywhere close to that, it's going to make the Great Depression look anemic. Okay. There's something else to keep in mind, and that is that everybody remembers 1929 as being the crash of the stock market. And that's what ushered in the Great Depression. But the worst year of the Great Depression was not until 1933. 4 years later, these things, once they start to go in the ditch, they go down, 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 and that ditch gets deeper, deeper, deeper. Okay. So people that think that we're going to take a little hit here because some people have lost their jobs and then we're going to bounce back, I don't see it. In my opinion, that's not going to happen. Now, people are anxious to see all this federal money that's coming their way in the stimulus package. Well, nobody ever got rich on borrowed money. I mean, yeah, okay, that's not, some people can borrow money and then make money with it, and usually those are developers and things like that. But it is not the way that an individual builds wealth. You can't build it with borrowed money, and you can't build it with given money, government money, money that the government doesn't have, that they're going to make other citizens pay back in the future and give to people to help them through a situation. It's not that I don't feel badly for these people, but this is not going to end up being a long-term help for the people. They're going to have to find a way to do that themselves, and it's going to put the country farther into debt. I mean, we're already at, well, I don't even remember what it is. I stopped paying attention a couple of years ago because it's not real money anymore. So if we're looking at a 32% unemployment rate, a third of the country out of work, and we modeled this after the Great Depression, whose unemployment rate was far less and which didn't hit the bottom for 4 years, we can expect this to keep going and getting worse, worse, worse. So what do? That's the important thing. Okay, nobody can come save you. And they talk about having this. What is this ridiculous thing that some people who don't like to work want? Guaranteed income, something like that. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to get off your butt and do work or produce anything. You just soak up the money that comes from somewhere, right? The magic money tree. So we have people talking about that. Well, that is not going to help at all, and all that's going to do is make junkies, money junkies, out of a greater percentage of Americans that already are. So what do? The most important thing, as this thing develops, it will develop, we'll see a crash, then we will start to see deflation. Okay, that means that people don't have the money to pay for goods, and that means the people with the goods are going to have to lower the price of their goods in order to sell it. Okay, doesn't really help the people who don't have any jobs, but it helps the people who have jobs a lot because they're going to be paying less for whatever it is they want. Okay, and this is really where some wealth is built for individuals and for families, is during down times. The most important thing to have in down times is a dependable income stream. Okay, for most people, that's a job, that's a salary. And a lot of people are going to lose. A lot of people have already lost it here in the service sector, and we've allowed our country to become service sector centered as opposed to manufacturing centered. And the people who are in the service industries, who have those jobs that rely on discretionary income, which means that it's extra money that people have, okay? After they've paid all their bills and all the things they have to, they got money left over, and now we can go out to eat, or we can go to the movies, or we can go on a vacation, or whatever. Those service sector people depend on that discretionary extra money that people have. Well, as that starts to contract, people aren't going to be spending it for a while, because they're going to be, the smart people are going to pull on their horns. They're going to say, well, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, so we're going to stop spending, even if we have good jobs and such. We're going to stop spending and stack our cash to see what's going on. So service sector people are going to be hit bad. Businesses are going to go out of business. Business owners are going to go broke. In 1929, during the crash, you heard the stories about the stockbrokers jumping out of windows, right? You didn't hear a lot of stories about farmers or tradesmen jumping out of windows. You know why? Because they still had something to produce. They had something that they, first off, that could sustain themselves with and the situation of the farmers. They also had things that people needed and wanted, which was the food they produced. Tradespeople, people still needed things done, depending on, of course, back then people would do more for themselves than they do nowadays. But they had goods and services that people needed, and so they did okay. So yeah, stockbrokers jumped, and farmers just kept on farming and built up during those times. There were a lot of farms that were lost, and I know that the bank-owned farms and things like that, it was devastating to that, but others did okay, and it all depends on your situation. So my advice is this. I'm going to tell you a story first. I had two grandfathers, as most people do, right? I'm going to tell you a story about one on this one, and then the other one deserves an entire video on him, because he did it even better than this one. My grandfather was a businessman. He fought in World War I in Europe, came back, established, he ran a piano company that he was a general manager for a big piano company, and then he married my grandmother, and they opened their own music store. Well, the crash came and they lost everything. And they had two young daughters, and they lived in a big city. Well, he had been a businessman. He wasn't a farmer, he wasn't a tradesman, he wasn't anything. He had been a businessman and a soldier. That was about it. He'd been a high school teacher before he went to war. So he really didn't have any skills to do anything, and the jobs that he was trained to do weren't there. Nobody needed another businessman. Nobody needed somebody else to know how to fill in a form. Okay. So, like most people back then, not everybody, there were still some bums back there too. But back then, people tended to kind of work and figure it out. And so he, either he or my grandmother, I forget who, came across, I know what it was. Somebody, I believe it was a piano tuner that he knew, needed to trade something, and all he had to trade were his piano tuning instruments. And so my granddad said, okay. And he didn't know how to tune a piano, but he'd sold pianos and he played pianos, so he figured he could figure out how to tune a piano. And so he started messing around, and he did. My grandmother took the Kansas City phone book. Back then they had phone books, right, with everybody's names and numbers in them. And she started going from the first A, and she cold called. And this is back before, telephones were even in the modern era for the most part. She cold called, spent 8 hours a day cold calling people on the phone. Hi, this is so-and-so. We do such and such. Would you happen to have a piano that needs to be tuned? And we can do that for you at a very good price. And you can imagine how many times she heard no or a hang up or something like that, but she kept at it. And she did that all day long, every day, and when she'd get a job, he would go out and do it. And they started from scratch with that. Over time, they built up, and then he ended up, after the Depression, doing very well. But that's what it took to get through it. Here's the thing. What's coming is bad. It's a monster. If you have a job, you keep that job. If you can get another job, get it. If you don't have a job, get one. Because if you're not getting it today, you're sure not getting it tomorrow. Okay. If you don't have any of that, or even if you have a job, develop a secondary income stream. Okay. If you have an office job or a computer job or any of these people, I know a lot of people who have jobs on paper. They make a lot of money shuffling stuff back and forth on paper. Guess what? A lot of those jobs are going to go away. Okay. And those people are going to have to find something else to do. So if there is something that you can do on the side, if you can develop a side business so that you can ramp that up, if you can develop two side businesses, if you can develop however many ways you can think of to develop another income stream, now's the time to do it, because chances are you're going to lose some of them. This is going to be one horrible thing to go through if it goes according to the projections and what I believe. Those who play it smart, those who work hard, those who are able to keep their income streams going are going to come out the other end even better than they are now. Those who don't, those who rely on other people, those who wait for the government to help them, those who are just too lazy to develop some other way to make some money, or those who think that they're just too good, just too good to work a job that they feel are beneath them. There's an old saying: if you think that a job is beneath you, pretty soon you're going to find yourself beneath it, and that is the truth. This is where character is exposed. But for those out there who have a good work ethic, have a good character, who do things right, and approach this with proper planning and responsibility, are gonna do okay. But you're gonna be surrounded by people who are not. So get ready for that. Load up. Wouldn't hurt to buy some extra ammo, right? Like I've been saying for a long time, every time you're at the store, you buy another box, right? It's the greatest investment that you can make. And get ready, because if the figures show anything, it shows that this stuff is coming and it's going to last a while. So anyway, I'll let it go with that, and I wish you all well. And remember, we're still preparing. Just because we're at the brink of a big problem doesn't mean that we stop preparing. We're always preparing. And like we always say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And no situation like an economic downturn or collapse or pandemic can reflect and can show this. I probably said that backwards. I don't know. I got wrapped up in the words, I suppose, and I started thinking about something else. So, but when these things come about, it shows, the importance of your preparedness. So you all have a good day, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. And keep everybody in your prayers. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.